During childbirth, Mr. Kwame's wife, Amara, tragically passed away, leaving him to raise their twin daughters alone. When the girls turned 5, he remarried, but his new wife, Miriam, despised the children, calling them bastards. The marriage ended bitterly, and from that day, Mr. Kwame vowed never to marry again. He sold every property he owned to ensure his daughters received an education. People in the community mocked him. Selling your only assets for girls' education. They'll grow up, get married, and forget you, they sneered. But Mr. Kwame never wavered. Years passed. Now his daughters have returned not just to visit, but to repay every sacrifice. Watch the full video to discover their journey. If you're new here, subscribe and join our growing family. And to our loyal subscribers, thank you for being with us. Now, let's dive into the story. The maternity ward at St. Ruth's Hospital was buzzing until the room fell silent. The monitors stilled, and Amara's last breath slipped away. Outside, Mr. Kwame paced, imagining toy trucks and father-son hikes. But when the doctor arrived, hat in hand, he uttered the words that shattered everything: "Your wife is gone. But your daughters survived." 2 nurses gently placed the newborns in his trembling arms, perfect, identical girls. He whispered through tears, "Amara, we were going to name him Kojo. Now, Ajoa and Abina. I'll raise them myself." No wife. No relatives left. His mother had passed 3 months earlier. Mr. Kwame stepped into a long, lonely night with 2 tiny lives tucked to his chest. At home, bills and grief littered the kitchen like fallen leaves. Morning arrived, but rest never did. When the twins cried with hunger and he found no formula, he ran through town, the babies tucked in his coat. That's when he met Madame Ifia, a midwife who collected breast milk from nursing mothers. She handed him bottles and said, "They belong to all of us now." Her kindness lit a spark in his darkest moment. That night, he sang Amara's favorite lullaby. The cold walls echoed with cries, but the girl's breath on his skin kept him steady. He stitched makeshift diapers, boiled pots for bottle cleaning, and learned to swaddle through trial and love. The community whispered, doubting a carpenter could raise children alone. He ignored them, crafting a mobile from scrap wood. His vow echoed with every diaper, "I will take care of you." By their first checkup, the twins were thriving. Nurses were amazed. Slowly, doubt turned to awe. But loneliness crept in after dark. Kwame told the twins bedtime tales of their mother, the woman who made the best jollof, who sang gospel louder than anyone, who gave her life for theirs. 3 months in, Ajoa discovered her thumb and Abina began a high-pitched squeal whenever ignored. Kwame juggled feedings with furniture commissions, carving bedposts while rocking a cradle with his foot. One day, he collapsed. When he awoke, the village chief's wife stood above him. "You need help, Kwame. Pride won't raise babies." She organized women to bring soup, clean clothes, and parenting wisdom. He resisted at first, then yielded to their support. Madame Ifia came nightly with donor milk, saying, "Amara helped many women learn to read. Now they return her favor." The words lifted his guilt. His daughters turned the workshop into a wonderland. Ajoa's first word was, "Star." Abina's was, "Papa." Their laughter drowned the town gossip. As the girls neared school age, rumors swirled again, "A man without a wife. Those children need a mother." Proposals came, some subtle, some strategic. But Kwame's heart remained with Amara's portrait. One day, a widow named Lena visited to commission a bookshelf. She laughed easily, brought snacks for the twins, and showed compassion. Eventually, Kwame allowed himself to hope again. They married in a simple ceremony beneath a neem tree. For 6 months, it seemed perfect, until the night he came home to find Lena beating the twins over a spilled pot of stew. "Bastards," she hissed. "You'll never be mine." Ajoa cried. Abina hid behind her sister. Kwame stepped between them. "Touch them again, and may God deal with you." Lena left by morning. Ashamed and furious, he swore before sunrise, "You two are my only family. Never again will I risk your peace." His resolve returned, sharper than ever. He sold custom beds and bookshelves to fund their schooling. "Why not just marry again?" villagers asked. "Sons would have built your legacy." Kwame answered with silence, and more savings. Ajoa loved astronomy. Abina fixed radios from trash bins. Kwame watched them grow with pride. But secondary school fees loomed. His income dipped. Timber prices soared. He considered selling the carpentry shop. Eventually, he did, his life's work, just to keep the girls in school. People mocked him, "Girls won't carry your name." But Kwame ignored them. They moved to the city, renting 2 small rooms near a public library. Work was scarce. A janitor job at the library offered little pay, but a chance. The head librarian, Madame Mensa, examined his hands and said, "If you respect wood, you'll respect books." Each morning, Kwame swept floors before sunrise while his daughters studied beside him after class. They ate together under a dim bulb, sharing laughter, books, and dreams. Market women asked where his wife was. Taxi drivers joked about bride prices. Kwame endured. When the school announced an expensive airport trip, Kwame sighed. But Madame Mensa sponsored it quietly. That day, Ajoa felt her heart race with the roar of engines. Abina studied wing mechanics. They came home and declared, "We want to fly and build planes." College dreams were born. By graduation, Ajoa was accepted to a top aviation academy. Abina got into a prestigious engineering program. Tuition felt impossible, until Kwame sold his last toolbox. "You will go," he told them, placing the money on their table. They wept, not because of what they gained, but for what he gave up. The twins cleaned dorms and walked dogs to make ends meet. Kwame took cleaning jobs in office blocks, proudly introducing his daughters to strangers. Future pilot and aircraft engineer. They kept pushing. Ajoa earned an internship with Sky Air. Abina won a tech design competition. Their stipends helped Kwame rent a small room after eviction. In his notebook, he scribbled, "Pain opens the door for grace." One day, Abina received a long-awaited call. Her bracket design was selected for a prototype trial. Ajoa's name was on the list for Sky Air's cadet program. She whispered on the phone, "Papa, your mop bought me wings." Kwame danced alone that night in the library corridor, broom in hand, heart full. And so, the carpenter who once carried 2 babies through grief now watches them rise, higher than his own dreams could reach. Months passed. Abina's prototype earned her a scholarship to study abroad. Ajoa began pilot training with Sky Air, donning a uniform that shimmered with pride. The day she first flew solo, she called home, voice trembling, "Papa, I touched the clouds today." Kwame, broom in hand, dropped to his knees and wept. That same week, Abina sent her first paycheck back home. Not with fanfare, but with a simple note, "For everything you sold, here's the first of many repayments." Enclosed was enough to move her father into a better apartment, modest, but bright, with a view of the sunrise. The girls didn't stop there. They pooled resources. Quietly. Strategically. Their dream was clear, to rebuild what he had once given up, his carpentry workshop. And not just as it was, but better. On his 60th birthday, they blindfolded him and led him to an empty plot he once owned, now crowned with a new building, Kwame and Daughters, Woodcraft and Innovation Hub. He stood frozen, tears running freely. Ajoa whispered, "You gave us wings, Papa. Now build again." Inside, sunlight streamed across polished worktables and fresh tools. There was a small office with framed photos, Amara smiling, the twins at 5, Kwame holding newborns in hospital blankets. One plaque read, To the man who built futures from splinters. The community came. The same ones who once mocked now applauded. Some came with apologies. Others with business proposals. Kwame simply smiled and said, "Let's begin again." Later, when Sky Air needed custom wood interiors for its VIP lounge, guess who they called? Kwame stood in his shop, measuring, cutting, mentoring young apprentices. His hands were older now, but his spirit never more alive. When Ajoa piloted her first international flight, she asked for one special passenger. Kwame boarded in a crisp suit, escorted by ground staff like royalty. In the cockpit, she turned and said, "Buckle up, Papa." As the plane soared into golden skies, he gripped the armrest, not from fear, but from the overwhelming sense that everything, every single sacrifice, had taken flight with him. The descent into Accra was smooth. As the wheels touched down, applause erupted, not from strangers, but from fellow passengers who had overheard the pilot dedicate the landing. "To my father, who taught me to rise even when grounded." Kwame was quiet on the ride home. Not withdrawn, just deeply reflective. His daughters had carved out futures from uncertainty. But what moved him most wasn't their success, it was how tightly they still held him in the center of it all. That night, as they sat under the stars on the new apartment balcony, Abina handed him a small box. "It's not your birthday," she said, "but it's time." Inside was a sleek, wooden tablet case. Carved with his initials. Inside the case, a tablet already powered on. Kwame raised an eyebrow. What am I supposed to do with this? TV without a channel?" Ajoa chuckled. "Open the app." It was a custom-built interface, simple, intuitive, in Twi and English. Labeled, "The Legacy Project." "What's this?" he asked, tapping curiously. Abina smiled. "It's your story. We've been recording interviews. Photos. Videos. Your designs. The apprentices you trained. The lives you changed." Kwame scrolled, wide-eyed. There was a young man he once taught who now ran a furniture export business in Kumasi. A voice recording of Amara singing lullabies. Blueprints from his early career. A video of a little boy, his grandson, saying, "Papa Kwame, I want to build things like you." Kwame's breath caught. "I'm a grandpa." Abina nodded. "Yes. And soon again. Twins." He laughed so hard, he nearly tipped his chair. "Ei. What is it with this family and coming in pairs?" They all laughed together, tears mixing with joy. Months later, the legacy project was no longer just for them. Schools began using it to teach craftsmanship. NGOs requested Kwame as a speaker. A university gave him an honorary degree in sustainable design. One evening, he stood before a crowd of young artisans, some as poor as he once was. He said simply, "You don't need much to build a future. Just hands that don't give up. A heart that still loves when empty. And people, your people who believe in you when even you don't." When he finished, Abina joined him on stage. "We want to announce the Kwame Foundation for Skill and Soul. Tuition-free mentorship. Design labs. Scholarships." The crowd rose in applause. Ajoa, who flew in just that morning, added, "And next year, we're opening a second branch. In memory of our mother." Kwame lowered his head, overwhelmed. His hands had built furniture, yes. But unknowingly, he had carved a legacy, one heart at a time. And every morning now, before he lifted a tool or checked a message on his tablet, he whispered a simple prayer. "Thank you, Amara. They flew. Just like we dreamed." It had been 15 years since Kwame first held the tablet in his hands, the one filled with his life's memories. Now 72, his beard fully silver and gait a bit slower, Kwame sat on a handcrafted bench beneath the mango tree in the courtyard of the Kwame Foundation's original campus. Around him, the air buzzed with the sound of chisels, hammers, laughter and possibility. The foundation had grown beyond anything he imagined. What started as a one-room workshop in Accra was now an international network of craft and design schools across Ghana, Rwanda, South Africa, and even the Caribbean. Young people who had once wandered aimlessly now spoke in terms of patents, eco-architecture, and cultural preservation. Many went on to universities, some returned as instructors. Some simply stayed and taught what they'd learned to pass it down as it was passed to them. That morning, a young girl maybe 11 or 12 approached him nervously with a tiny chair in her hands. Its joints were imperfect. The polish uneven. But her eyes were bright. "Uncle Kwame," she said shyly, "I made this for my little brother. I used the dovetail joint, like you showed us in that old video." He smiled, touching the chair's legs. "Sturdy. Honest. Beautiful. Just like you." She beamed, then ran off, the chair wobbling in her hands like a toddler finding balance. Kwame looked up. Across the courtyard, Abina, now a lead architect for a Pan-African housing initiative, was leading a community build. Nearby, Ajoa, who'd taken over as chair of the board, was being filmed for a documentary on Black innovation and heritage. A few of his grandchildren were chasing each other around a stone fountain shaped like a pair of wings. His old logo, now their symbol of continuity. He reached for his cane hand-carved by one of his students years ago and stood slowly. As he walked, he passed a wall lined with names etched in brass, students, mentors, collaborators. At the center, engraved deeper than the rest. "In memory of Amara Owusu, the first builder of our dreams." That night, the family gathered at his home, old friends, extended kin, former apprentices. There was laughter, music, jollof and roasted plantains, even some dancing. Kwame, watching from the veranda, raised a glass of sabolo and said, "It started with love and grief. But look, we built joy. We built flight." In the final hours of the evening, after the guests had gone, and the moon laid silver paths over the courtyard, Kwame sat alone for a moment. The wind rustled through the mango tree, and for a brief second, he swore he could smell Amara's favorite shea butter in the air. He looked upward, eyes misty. "They're flying, my love. You can rest. So can I." And with that, the man who built a legacy not from wealth or fame, but from grief, faith, and his own two hands closed his eyes, smiling softly,